Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to a brand new video on the channel. Inside of today's video, we're going to be doing a rank guide again for this season. So a lot has changed in terms of a lot of the popular buffy brawlers are some of the best brawlers in the game. Shock, surprise. But it has shifted the competitive meta quite a fair bit. So I'll be going through every single map and game mode. Put a timestamp in the description for you guys, helping you a little bit with draft tips. But overall, this video in particular is just to learn the best brawlers in the game, and just this alone can win you drafts. But I will be doing follow-up videos for sure about how to draft style, how to completely outdraft, when to draft particular brawlers. I'll be doing that in the future. So without further ado, let's jump into it. So starting off with Bounty Dry Season, here are your best picks on your screen right here. So the meta right now, you might be surprised, is very dominated by Surge, Star Nova, 8-bit, Meg in particular. Brock as well is really good on Bounty, but I would shy away from completely first picking Brock unless the bans favor you. So for example, normally if like Max is banned out, that's probably the safest way to, you know, play a Brock. Max is a pretty decent option as well in Dry Season. Normally you need to pair it with something as well. Max is great into those snipers because you're starting to see a bit more snipers in Bounty again with a recent buff to Piper. You've seen obviously Pierce, you've seen the Byrons. Bell's not used as much, but for example, that's where Max is really good and where Max can shine. Max gets infinite supers like that. So last picks, you got to worry about Sprout receiving a small buff. It's not like the greatest last pick in the world, but you still got to be careful of it. You've still got the kit's cheese synergy, you've still got Bolt to worry about. Mortis isn't as prevalent as before, same with Edgar, but you still got to worry about them as a last pick. Blue Star isn't as prevalent as well in this meta. I mean, you can go with a Blue Star brawler, but for the most part, you just need a little bit of aggression at least in your combination. So whether the aggression's in a form of like a super that can go through walls, whether it's a super that can push the opponent's back, that sort of thing. Again, don't go for the same brawlers. You're just going to get countered. Now moving on to Hideout, here your best picks on your screen right here. So Surge is still one of the best picks. Surge can get countered on these long range maps, but on a map like this, it can only really get countered by like Brock. So maybe you could like ban a Brock and then first pick a Surge pretty easily, because all you got to do is push up to that left hand wall, keep your super. The main thing is keeping your super Surge, because you can just use that to jump over the wall and get more levels. So again, it's the same sort of thing with Hideout, but in particular the ones that you might be wondering, the Glober and Pearl are very, very strong on these two maps. Pearl has resurged up the meta recently. She's a great counter to Max, for example, so that's why you've seen a lot of Pearl. You're also seeing Pearl because it really, you just can't go like a Mortis or like a Kit or something like that into a Pearl, because Pearl can heat up and deal a lot of damage very quickly, and Pearl's still decent into those longer range brawlers as well. So that's why you're seeing a lot of Pearl right now. Sixth pick really isn't that important, because for the most part you should be able to cover all bases. I'd say the only sixth pick you really got to worry about is if you go too many snipers and the enemy last pick maybe like a Piper or a Nanny, something like that. So that's the only thing to worry about in Hideout. Next up for Bounty, we have Layer Cake here. Your best picks on your screen right here. So as I always say with Layer Cake, it is the one Bounty map that tends to spring a little bit different in terms of the type of brawlers that you can go. So with Layer Cake, you hardly want to go a sniper. I mean, unless it's last pick, you want to go like a mid brawler that is like your typical, can get you a little bit of poke, can get you positioning with super. So the type of mid brawlers like here are the likes of like Meeple, you've got Jean, you've got the likes of Crow, these Max, Lumi. Those types of brawlers are going to be good in the mid. And then you always want some type of aggressive brawler. So whether that is like a Kaze, a Carl, a Mortis. I mean, again, you've got so many options that you can choose from. A lot of last picks like Edgar, Shade. Some people even like first pick Shade in this situation, because you just need someone aggressive. And then you need a kind of defensive brawler. Not like an Otis or a Chester. They're not really as strong as they used to be, but more so a brawler that can defend themselves a little bit, at least if there's some incoming aggro. So yeah, you've got to consider everything here. But Layer Cake, you've always got to be careful of the Shades and the Mortises and the Edgars, but at the same time you want to be on the aggressive as well. And lastly for Bounty, we have Shooting Star. So pretty easy map to draft on for Shooting Star, because there isn't really a whole lot you've got to worry about in terms of your later picks. The only really brawlers you've probably got to worry about the likes of Fang, that's probably the main one, Bolt, Mortis, maybe like a Sprout. So as always, you want these types of brawlers are pretty easy to pick inside of Shooting Star. I think the biggest change is that, well, you can take a look at the first pick brawlers. I still actually recommend going to Surge on this map because in the middle, you can use your super and just guaranteed kills most of the time. That's how broken his star power is. Star Nova lacks the range, but you've still got her gadget that can leech onto opponents pretty easily. 8-bit pairs with a lot of different snipers. Piper has resurged into the meta, but as always recommend getting like 2 pretty solid ranged brawlers. Try and just pick them up as quickly as possible. So for example, you know, your Bells are going to be pretty good still here. Your Byrons, Brock is going to be good in Shooting Star with his recent buffies. You got Pierce, Jae Young to collect the blue star. You've got a lot of like safe picks, and then you always got to worry about, like I said, even like an assassin or a thrower late pick. So you want a range brawler that can at least deal with that if necessary. So that's why I've got likes of, even like Byron can have some crazy DPS. That's why Bell with a Mark can be pretty good here. So got to consider that. Moving on to Brawl, starting off with center stage here. Your best picks on your screen right here. So again, the meta is highly dominated by the same types of brawlers, but your Surge, Star Nova, Griff is going to be the main one. That might be surprising some people for the last week and a half, I would say. Well, ever since the last update, Griff has been surging up the meta, and he's definitely his S tier right now. If you guys want to know why, it is because of the star power rework. You're able just to get so much DPS with, is it keep the change star power? Yeah, it's completely broken. So he's just going to be one of the best brawlers in the game right now, particularly in Brawl. You got Max, Damien, and 8-bit. So I will say about this map is the types of assassins and aggro brawlers are a lot harder to play because you just see it completely dominated by your 8-bits, your Griffs. There's a lot of heavy damage dealers. You got Rico, who's exceptional on this map and starting to surge up the meta a bit more after a lot of people saying, myself included, he got nerfies, but he's actually pretty strong as long as you don't play it into a Griff. You know, Otis is still good here. Chester's fallen down a bit, but still, Otis is one of his better maps, to be fair. You've got to worry about 6th picks, in my opinion, the likes of Buzz, Edgar, Mortis, and Ali. Those are the main ones to focus on. But this meta is kind of swaying away more so from the aggressive brawlers right now and just to pure chaotic buffy brawlers. Next up for Brawl, we have Pinball Dreams here. Best picks on your screen right here. So with Pinball Dreams, as always, it reminds me of just that map which is going to be very, very dominant in terms of a last pick, because you can go throwers last pick. You can go aggression. Again, what I always recommend, absolutely on Pinball Dreams, you need one aggressive brawler no matter what. It doesn't matter about the meta, because if you just get one aggressive brawler pushing up, that's going to literally win your team the game. So again, whether that's a Shade, a lot of people first pick Shade on this map, which is just absolutely crazy. I definitely recommend more so people watching this to pick him as a last pick, because he's a little bit harder to play. But the pros, you see how strong he is. So you need one good kind of mid brawler. So your mid brawler is going to be the likes of Max. You've got like 8-bit in the mid. You've got Otis. You've got Lumi. You've got Rico. You need that type of brawler in the mid that is going to be able to like poke. You need like a good damage dealer, and then you need a good aggressive brawler, or maybe like a control brawler. So your control brawlers are going to be your damage dealers. Your damage dealers are going to be the pressure brawlers, and your pressure brawlers are going to be your control. So that's kind of the 360 that I always talk about and I have done for years. So yeah, you can see by the best picks. Just go there. We have Sneaky Fields here, your best picks on your screen right here. So Sneaky Fields plays pretty similar to center stage. Well, in terms of like the brawler selection, is pretty much the same there. But again, with Sneaky Fields, you want this mid brawler that can either be a mid or a flex. So by that, I mean like, yeah, he's going to primarily go down the middle, but he's going to be pinching as well. So that's why you like some Rico and Ruffs are going to be exceptional here. So Max is going to be very good. Meeple's going to be very good. But you got to bear in mind, if you have like a Ruffs or a Meeple, you need to be pairing that with like a damage dealer. Because if you go 2 of the same types of brawlers, you're just going to get countered by that 6th pick. So just to bear that in mind. Your pressure brawlers aren't exactly needed. I know I put that in the draft tips. But at the same time, you've got to at least go some type of brawler with a bit of pressure. So even if that's like a Carl, he's going to get you pressure, right? But at least he has a little bit of range. Some of a little bit of health inside of the bush is more so what I mean. The more health, the more pressure that you can exert. So those are the best picks. You have triple dribble. So again, triple dribble is all going to be about that rock, paper, scissors as such for this map in particular. But it definitely is this kind of merry-go-round of having to worry about those annoying 6th picks. A lot of them, again, have not been as strong as before, but you've still got your Shades that you got to worry about. You still got to worry about your Edgars, and you still got to worry about like a last pick, maybe thrower. Throwers are a little bit stronger than beforehand, so you got to bear that in mind. But you got a lot of strong, powerful brawlers. So the type of brawlers I love on triple dribble that are always kind of these cheat picks, essentially. I like the likes of Meeple. Meeple, again, super strong on this map in particular. You got Mo as well, that can pinch with ease. You got Lumi as well. These types of brawlers are just going to be able to pinch a lane by themselves, and that will literally win your lane and win you the game. So these types of brawlers that you really want to have inside of your composition. Again, you want to make sure you got one damage dealer, one sort of flex control, and the pressure brawler is actually really good on this map in particular because you want to put them down the right. You see a lot of Kenji here in pro play. You see a lot of like Edgar, you see a lot of Mina, because they can just push up to that right hand side. There's a lot of walls, so you can just push up, and that's going to allow you to gain a lot of map control. Moving on to the featured game mode this month for ranked, it is Gem Grab. Starting off with Crystal Arcade. So Crystal Arcade is a pretty new competitive map, and I used to like it back in my day, like 2020 times, but I think there's too many wall breaks right now, which makes Crystal Arcade a little bit toxic. So the wall breaks are going to be the things that I would probably recommend focusing on the most with Crystal Arcade. Yes, your wall breaks are probably going to be vulnerable against those aggressive brawlers, but your wall breaks are going to win pretty much most lanes. So a good example of this is maybe like a Sandy or a Nita is down one of these lanes. Well, if you've got a Ruffs with Super, Brock with Gadget, you've got a Griff with Gadget, they're going to open up both lanes within what, like 40 seconds of the game. And if the enemy has no range, they're just going to lose. So you see this happen quite often inside of your draft. So do be wary of it. Even though Sandy and Nita can be pretty good, you only really want to go these brawlers when you've either got the wall break in your comp, and then hopefully your teammate doesn't open up the map for you, or if you ban out the wall breaks. So gem carriers, I will be saying this a lot. You want to be making sure you face it. You've got a gem carrier that has some kind of escape, high health, that sort of thing. So Stu can be pretty good. You got Max, you got Meg, Lola's going to be good into the Max, and so is a Pearl as well. You've seen Pearl and Lola as new gem carriers in this meta because they're really good safe picks. Next up for gem grab, we have a double Swoosh here. Best picks on your screen right here. So with double Swoosh, again, it is a bit of aggro, it's a bit of vision gear brawler, it's a bit of a mid that is going to be safe into everything. So what I will say absolutely is on at least one of your brawlers, probably two, you want the vision gear on absolutely because there's so much grass and whether that is. So the main thing that you want to do, it's not always going to hold true because it's dependent on your lane matchup. But for the most part, you want to be sending your aggressive brawler, but the one that's going to be able to get onto the enemy gem carrier down the right hand side as much as possible. Then you want your kind of damage brawler, your kind of safe brawler on the left hand side because they can push up, but they can also help defend your gem carrier. So gem carriers again are going to be a same old brawlers that are good with vision gear, brawlers that can escape pretty easily. All of them are on the gem carrier list. Last pick, again, there's so many good dangerous assassins. I would always favor, even in a really high damage meta like this, I would always favor at least like one good super brawler like a Sandy, or just a straight up aggressive brawler, because aggro will eventually win you the game. Even if you get encountered the whole game, if you've got two game-changing brawlers, you will find a way to win. Moving on to Hard Rock Mine here, your best picks on your screen right here. So Hard Rock Mine, if you guys really want to learn the draft that well, there's so many games in EMEA that have been drafted for Hard Rock Mine, because Hard Rock Mine is just literally, if you was to think of a competitive map, it would be this map in terms of a true competitive fair map. So yeah, a lot of pro teams have played each other on this, so you can see a lot of different drafts. I'm just waffling like crazy right now, but in terms of Hard Rock Mine, it's pretty simple, right? Again, you've got the gem carrier. This is like this rock, paper, scissors and gem carries right now, but you see a lot of like Max is pretty much the best, but then you've got good counters to Max in Lola and Pearl, so you're just seeing that quite a fair bit. You've also got Crow, that's a good counter to Max. So the Max is good, yeah, she can dominate in most parts, but she has the obvious counters as well, so do be wary of that. To be honest, I think your gem carry is probably the thing that you need to worry about the least, but at the same time, you want to leave that last pick open so you get the dangerous sixth pick brawler. So again, your assassin brawlers are going to be the ones creating the space. You need that brawler that can create the space, get onto the enemy gem carrier. You need that brawler that can defend a little bit, but at least turn defense into offense. That is the main thing you got to worry about. And then you got your wall-peep brawlers as well, which are pretty strong. So for gem grab, we have Deathcap Trap. So this map in particular plays very much like Crystal Arcade in terms of the brawler selection, but in terms of how you want to play it, it's a little bit more obvious where you want your more aggressive brawler. Well, that's just not the most obvious, really, because you could play a defensive brawler down the right-hand side, so one that can pinch out pretty well, like a Ruffs, like a Rico, something like that. Or you can opt to put your aggressive brawler down the right. I think normally the aggressive brawler goes on the left because you've got that little bit of pocket there, and then you've got the grass that you can push into. So as always, gem carriers, I mean, again, gem carriers are a little bit of a nuisance here because there are a few in particular that can be very strong if picked towards the end of the draft, like a penny, for example. But for the most part, you want a bit of survivability, you want the ability to pinch, and you want a bit of health there, so you can stay in the middle and you can last and collect those gems as much as possible. So again, the last picks are going to be your assassins. Assassins are very good on this map. Gem 4, so with Gem 4 you would have seen Foot versus Humble. If you want to practice this map, take a look at the gameplay at the monthly final in EMEA, and you will see just how this is played out. So it plays out a little bit differently in ranked. You've always got to remember that there are always going to be some brawlers sneaking in behind you, so it's all about that big burst damage, but it's all about the pop-off moments as well. Make sure that you've got one brawler that will have some form of capability to pounce upon the gem carrier. You would have heard me say this a lot, but it's very crucial on Gem 4 in particular, because you might be the one that's sneaking in behind and trying to get a team wipe, or at least trying to get the gem carrier and sneaking out with the gems. So you want one brawler that it will be able to sustain themselves in the middle, as always in gem grab. You want a brawler that has some good scouting capabilities, or at least powerful inside of the bush, and you want someone that is very sneaky. So whether that's an assassin, whether it's a tank, whether it is a brawler like a Sandy or something, you need a bit of everything. We have Undermine here, your best picks on your screen right here. So with Undermine, as I always say, I think the biggest draft tip I can speak about, or just in-game tip, is that of course you want to go down your typical lane, but don't be afraid to either like double stack a lane and just focus on one lane. I think Undermine's just all about messy gameplay and trying just to... it's just, you can't control a game of Undermine is what I'm trying to say. Like, you can't just, like most gem grab maps, you can probably control your way to victory, you know, win lane, win a game. But this one isn't about that. It's just about trying to take advantage of the opponents when you have like a game changer, super hypercharge, whatever it is. So always go an assassin, pressure brawler, always, because again, you just need that one moment to kill the enemy gem carrier and you can just rob their game just like that. So that's why brawlers like Ali are very good on this map, for example. It's really hard to deal with. Again, your lane brawlers, you want like a good brawler that can poke at a distance, and that, you know, once you win one lane, the enemies are forced to switch over to the other lane because you can't push into an Otis, for example. So it Undermine's a bit messy. Now moving on to Heist, your best picks on your screen right here. So Heist has changed a little bit in terms of how to draft for it. Before, what I'm noticing in pro play is before you'd always go defender no matter what, but I think your defensive brawlers are a little bit worse than what they used to be. So you can see there's less defensive brawlers here. I mean, yeah, I wouldn't shy away from going one, but just one at maximum. You don't need to defend that much because there's just a lot of high damage brawlers in the meta. So yeah, Surge is still very good on bridge too far. Maybe not like first pick, absolutely, but a brawler to absolutely consider because he can jump over the walls easily and confirm kill. Yeah, he's very strong right now. Starnova is going to be good in just the individual 1v1 matchups, and once she gets super, she can deal a lot of damage onto the save. That's why I recommend it, and you can use a gadget to fly over to a particular lane and just shred them down easily. So again, you might think she lacks a range, but absolutely not. She makes up with it with her gadget. Next, you've got so in terms of bridge to far, I think it's mostly just about range, but at the same time you want a bit of damage on the meanwhile. It's all about just trying to pick the range brawlers that counter the enemy's picks for the most part. So you can see like Lola can be pretty good for that reason. You know, Max can be good in 1v1 individual matchups. You've got Globa, who can be very underrated. You've got Angela that can sweep up a lot of the time. Actually a bit better in this meta, and so is Eve, because it's a bit more sniper dominated, so you can get away with those slow defensive brawlers. And your safe damage brawlers, again, you need one safe damage brawler. So whether that's a Colt, whether that's a Brock, whether that's an 8-bit, whether that's even like an Amber that can go onto defense, onto offense, you need one brawler that's always going to do safe damage. You need one that is at least has some defensive power, and then in between. So now moving on to Hot Potato here, your best picks on your screen right here. So the famous word of base race map probably isn't as base racy as before. It's not even a word, is it? But you know what I mean. This map, I think, again, a lot of like tanks and assassins aren't as strong as they used to be in previous metas, but it's still very prevalent. So in terms of what I recommend, I mean, I do recommend a defensive brawler on this map, absolutely, because with a defensive brawler here, you're guaranteed to get people just running at you the whole game. So Otis is very good, Lumi's good for that reason. You've seen a lot of meeple on Hot Potato and Pit Stop right now. If you watch competitive gameplay, it can be very good defensively because you're just guaranteed to get kills with the meeple. And with Meeple, the biggest weakness is his damage, but you're pretty much guaranteed on your team to have a damage brawler. So, you know, if you pair Meeple with like a Colt, for example, or I don't know, any type of assassin that can deal some high damage, or like an Amber or Rico, you know you're going to be fine as long as, you know, Meeple can be, his teammates can help pinch him. So that's what I'm trying to say. Again, you want like your safe damage brawler. So most of the time, these brawlers are going to look to get countered. So don't be afraid of that. You know, your Kazes, your Melodies, there's going to be some counters on the enemy team. But you just need that, you need that pressure. I always talk about pressure, but you need something that can push you forward, so then your teammates can then follow up with some damage as well. So even if you're not doing damage, at least your teammates can follow in behind you and get some damage as well. So 6th pick, I won't worry too much. It's just mainly a few assassins. So we have Kaboom Canyon here, your best picks on your screen right here. So for Kaboom Canyon, again, you want a bit of a safe defender, but at the same time, you don't want to be too defensive on a map like this. You want brawlers that can turn off defense into offense pretty easily. And your assassins and late picks aren't really brawlers you've got to worry about too much, in my personal opinion. I think the only way that you only get countered too badly against a last pick is going to be if you have too many snipers. So it's just your typical brawlers for Heist again. The first pick brawlers have changed a little bit, so depending on your 2, 3, 4, 5 picks, the ones that are going to try and counter your first picks, those types of brawlers change a little bit, but it's still the same meta as before after the first pick. And lastly for Heist, we have Safe Zone here, your best picks on your screen right here. So for Safe Zone, again, the types of brawlers that are going to be very, very annoying in my opinion are the likes of Penny. Penny's probably the one brawler that you just can't seem to really counter all too much. The Safe Zone is a bit more aggressive than before, but at the same time it's more aggressive just because of the broken buffy brawlers, but not really with the safe damaging brawlers. So with your composition, what I always recommend, you need either a ranged brawler in the middle or a defensive brawler in the middle. Your left-hand brawler is going to be a high damage brawler or a flex, like safe damage like a Colt or a Penny, for example. And then you could even go right with another safe damage or another flex brawler. So it's pretty simple for Safe Zone. So now moving on to Hot Zone, starting off with Dueling Beetles here, your best picks on your screen right here. So first pick brawlers, they are pretty much the same as always. The biggest changes in the meta, the likes of, again, Griff coming into the meta, Lou is back in the Hot Zone meta for sure. But it's all just about picking the most powerful brawlers on the map and just abusing them as much as possible. That's all I can really say about this meta. There's not really a ton of, like, I don't know, outdraft, well, like, countering in this meta in particular. It's just all about picking as many powerful brawlers as possible. The good synergies to worry about really is like the Grey M's cheese. So the way to really counter that is probably most times just banning Grey if the enemy has to free pick, but also I mean, you can't really counter it too well. I'm just trying to think of counters. Not really a whole lot out there other than like a Lou that can counter it. Last picks, you got to worry about Barley. Last pick, again, that's starting to become very prevalent. That's really about it. Open Business is next. Open Business is a very good, like, controller based map in my opinion. Again, it's very hard to make the pressure brawlers work on a map like this, but for Open Business, I always recommend going like one controller brawler, one damage dealer, and then either like a zone time or an aggro brawler. Aggro brawlers are basically your zone time brawlers as well, really, because they've got a lot of health and they can sit in the zone for a very long time. So again, it's also all about picking the meta brawlers as quickly as possible in your draft selection. And really, your like 5 and 6 picks are the only real way you're going to be able to counter the oppositions in this type of meta. So yeah, you just see the changes in the meta. The same type of brawlers are at the top. We still have parallel plays. I'm waiting for this map to be removed. But for now, here are your best picks. So at least with parallel plays, the meta does deviate a little bit away from your typical Hot Zone meta, because a lot of the times you've got to consider a lot of different things. So the first one is you want one defensive brawler that can probably pinch and peek itself. So that's why I like the likes of Charlie there. You've got M's because you've got the shoot through gadget. You've got RT with a split, for example. You've got Willow that can shoot over walls. You've got Cordelia. So these are a few other good defensive brawlers. You want an offensive brawler, which again can either just pressure up with mobility or can jump over walls, etc. That can turn around their game pretty easily. So your Shades going through walls, your Damians, whatever. And then you want a both zone brawler. So both zone brawlers are like brawlers that can help pinch, but then have like a good super or something that can help gain control of that top zone. So first and foremost, you want to guarantee that you get a pinch on the defensive lane, and then you want to push forward. And lastly, for Ring of Fire, here are your best picks on your screen right here. So Ring of Fire plays a little bit differently than some of the other hot zone maps, because typically you have 1 or 2 zone time brawlers, and then you got one kind of in between. Maybe it's a control brawler in between, so like a Penny, or whether you have like a pressure brawler like a Mina, a Kenji, a Mortis, a Damien, something like that. But for the most part, because of the amount of high damage brawlers in the game right now, especially in this meta, it's hard to go like an assassin or something last pick, because most of the time you can just group up in the middle. You know, you'll get a kill pretty easily, and then you'll push up onto the zone. So again, your same brawlers are going to be strong here. Your Crows, your Loomies, your Griffs, your zone time brawlers like Finks, Globert, very good. Grey, Ems combinations. You've got like Poco to counter the opposition. So it's just the same meta over and over again. Moving over to Knockout, starting off with Bell's Rock. So Bell's Rock does play out a little bit different in comparison to other Bell's Rocks, because you see a bit of a shift in the meta here, because Rico is very, very strong, only really countered by the likes of Brock. You see Max in the Bell's Rock meta. You see Surges, it's starting up, but they're normally banned out. Like I say, Brock, you might think, well, Brock used to be a stick, but I'm talking like first pick Brock. Normally he could get counted out still by other means, but yeah, he's very, very strong on this meta. He's seen a bit more range. I think Niger has died off in the meta quite a lot outside of Knockout, because Knockout, there's not a lot you got to worry about in terms of late picks right here, because Edgar's not as menacing as before. Same with Mortis as well. So you can safely go Niger if you want to. Make sure you're banning Kit. There are good counters to Kit right now in the competitive meta. You got Finks with the gadget, you got Cordelia, so that's why you're seeing a little bit less Kit, but still very, very prominent right now. So yeah, it's just the same old. I think what you got to remember is that you need at least one high health brawler that's going to win you that pressure late game. Pressure wins you the game. Next up for Knockout, we have Flare and Phoenix. Here are your best picks on your screen right here. So Flare and Phoenix is a little bit of a weird one. I always struggle to draft appropriately on this map. I don't know what it is for whatever reason. Your typical way that you want to draft on this map is sending one person down the left and 2 people in the middle. Well, one person mid, one person far right. Most of the time you want like a good sniper brawler in the middle, whether that be like a Gene with the vision gear, whether like Piper in this meta, maybe like a Mandy. One of the other lanes you want like either an assassin or a thrower or something that can, throwers are good down the left so you can throw over, but then you got to worry about the assassin because you're vulnerable as a thrower. So I like your Squeaks here. Your Greys can be really good at pushing up, and you need a bit of everything, like I always say, because once the gas closes in, that's where your brawlers like Buster, your Ollies start to shine all that more. New Horizons is next, and for New Horizons, it's all about, most of the time it is your snipers. A little bit of cheese can happen, but most brawlers should have a type of wall break. So what I always recommend, because there can be a few cheesy compositions that you might face off against, for example, you might face off against your Busters or an aggro brawler just sitting there. So have one wall break or one type of capability that can pierce through walls. So that's why you got like Surge with a jump, Gene with a super, Brock with a gadget, got Pearl with her super, you got Meeple with the box and the super, you got Jae Young that can pinch pretty easily, you've got Charlie that can shoot round walls, Piper with a jump, Niger that can shoot round walls, Byron with super, Angelo with gadget, Grey with hook. The list goes on. You need at least one of those brawlers, because if you go the two, say if you go like a Gus and then you go a Bell, you know, the enemies are just going to sit behind a wall and just win the game in the late game. So do bear that in mind. Your late picks are going to be your standard, but also not too much to worry about as long as you're not going like 2 snipers. Knockout, we have Out in the Open. So Out in the Open, again, if you want to watch and learn this draft as much as possible, a lot of pros, I don't think it was this monthly final, but the one after, it was played so much. Pros really like Out in the Open because it's a very fair knockout map. So the strategy is, with most time in Out in the Open, you don't really need a wall break, but wall break can be pretty strong, because if you have like a Piper jump, a Brock gadget, a Pearl super, you can break that back wall and allow yourself not to get spawn trapped. So for the most part, with Out in the Open, you want a brawler that can scout a little bit. You want a pressure brawler, but by pressure brawler, it can even be an aggro brawler, or it can be someone like a Pearl with a lot of health, or a Meg with a lot of health that can push down the right hand side and push the enemies back into spawn. So again, you want to make sure that you've got the DPS, but then not too much DPS, because then you can get countered by range. You just want a bit of everything, because you don't want to be pushed back into spawn. You want to hold your own as much as possible, because again, pressure will win you games. So that's going to be it for today's video, guys. Again, it's not really like a thorough draft guide in the sense of like completely teaching you guys how to draft, you know, what to pick into X brawler, but pretty much using this cheat sheet will guarantee you near enough to get masters if you're not really bad at the game, because a lot of these are just insanely strong in terms of your meta pick brawlers. So that's going to be it. I hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and see you guys next time.